Japan has seen a very mild autumn season so far this year. Temperatures around normal, actually a little bit above in many areas. Will it continue? Will an El Nino form? Will a La Nina form? We're going to take a look at that in this special edition of Soracast. About a month ago, I published a video that talked about the ENSO, ENSO, which is the El Nino Southern Oscillation. And that is the driver, that's the mechanism that moves the El Nino and the La Nina weather phenomenons, right? The El Nino, of course, is where the equatorial ocean is just a little bit above normal, and its sister phenomenon, La Nina, is the opposite, where temperatures are a little bit below normal. The Climate Prediction Center, which is an office of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States, has issued an update to their ENSO forecast for the winter 2025. According to their data, it looks like we are in a weak La Nina situation, and we will be for most of the first part of the winter. So both El Nino and La Nina are large-scale anomalies in ocean surface temperatures, where El Nino is a little bit of a rise in the surface temperatures of the ocean around the equator, and La Nina, the opposite, a little bit of a decline in the surface temperatures. Both of these events can have profound and wide-ranging impacts on weather worldwide. Usually, they occur around the end of the year or around Christmas time, which is where they get their name, La Nina and El Nino. Meteorological agencies globally monitor the Pacific Ocean along the equatorial zones, and they split this into four areas: the Nino 1 and 2, the Nino 3, the Nino 4, and the combined Nino 3.4. If anomalies are found, this will give cause for further research to try to determine whether or not a La Nina or El Nino can be declared. So, according to data analyzed by the Climate Prediction Center, Nino Area 1 plus 2, which is on the far eastern side of the Pacific, on the coast of South America, has seen a rise of 0.1 Celsius. However, the remaining Nino areas, Nino 3, Nino 4, and the overlapping Nino 3.4, have seen declines of between 0.5 and 0.6 Celsius, which is one of the main conditions to examine whether or not a La Nina is forming. So here's a chart that lays out the sea surface temperature anomalies for all of the Nino investigation areas for the year. And you can see from July, you can see a decrease in many areas. The anomaly decrease is especially profound in Nino 3, Nino 4, and the overlapping Nino 3.4. And here in this quick video, you can see how the anomalies develop through the year. One part that is really interesting to note is that the area around Japan, the Sea of Japan and the Pacific coast offshore Japan, is still above normal. And the anomalies around the equator, however, do suggest that there is a weak La Nina forming. The news of a weak La Nina forming may be marginally good news for people who enjoy outdoor sports such as skiing or whatever. However, if you do plan to go to Niseko or somewhere in Hokkaido for your ski adventure, please understand that this does not mean that we are going to get increased record amounts of snowfall. It will be a marginal effect. While there's a possibility that we will get increased snow along the Sea of Japan and up in Hokkaido, Tohoku, at the beginning of the winter, by the time the winter begins to wrap up around the end of January, February, March, it does look like we will be back in ENSO neutral
territory, which means that we will be in normal winter conditions. Normal winter conditions are fine for outdoor recreational activities in Japan, but this weak La Nina does not mean we're going to get tons of extra snow or incredibly bitter cold temperatures. Pretty much all global meteorological models are in agreement that a weak La Nina is forming. However, it should be noted that the JMA in particular is pretty pessimistic about the strength of this particular La Nina. They are emphasizing that this will be weak. It's not going to make a significant change in the normal winter forecast, and they do predict that this La Nina will begin to dissipate around mid January of next year. The American services as well believe that this La Nina will begin to dissipate around the middle of January, and as we begin to head on into spring, tail end of winter, that we will move into an ENSO neutral state.
So a weak La Nina. What does that mean for Japan's winter weather this year? Well, on a day-to-day basis, it's probably not going to affect it that much. If we had a stronger La Nina or even an El Nino, we could really define exactly how this is going to drive Japan's winter season. However, with this weak La Nina situation that we're seeing right now, it probably is not going to make that much difference on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, maybe some more snow along the Sea of Japan coast up in Hokkaido, maybe some colder temperatures here and there throughout the country, but it is not going to be a blanket overall difference. Also, once this thing starts to dissipate, we're talking about 55% chance that we're going back to ENSO neutral, within the January to March timeframe. As winter starts to wrap up, we're probably going to float back up to what we would call normal temperatures. Still cold, of course, it's winter, but it's not going to have the effect that a stronger La Nina would have on the country. I hope you enjoyed this Soracast special. If you want more great Japan weather and science content, just spoink that subscribe and like button, all right? Take care and have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye.